and welcome to episode number 421 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. We are back, and in this week's show, Ryanair sets a new record. One passenger takes a whiz after seeing their phone bill, and another passenger eats a very expensive McMuffin. And in the military this week, the US Special Operations Command chooses a new armed overwatch platform, and a large portion of the world's fighter fleet is grounded. So joining me this week from a slightly cooler but slightly more furbished studio this week, a la Blind, is Matt Smith.
Yes, hello everyone, welcome. Nice to be back. What did you do with your week? You were working, weren't you, for your week off?
My week off? Well, yeah, I was.
Well, yeah, the week off the show, I mean.
Week off the show, yeah, I was working. Yeah, I've had a busy. Last week was wedding on the Friday, wedding on the Saturday, and the week before was also just parties everywhere. I'm catching up on the weddings that were booked in for 2019, 2020 at the moment.
I bet. Yeah, busy old time.
Yeah, it's all very busy. But Matt, can I just say, what have you done with the window?
Well, I covered it up. Yes, to those...
Everyone is used to seeing a window.
Right, okay, yeah. So to those listening to the audio version of the show, we've got a green blind in here, which means it now disappears, if you like, in terms of the screen. So yes, that's not very interesting for anyone else. So apologies for that.
But welcome back as well this week. He's our European traveller on the show who's got more gold points than every gold mine in the world. It is, of course, Neville Bounds.
Yes, I am back, pleased to say, and nice to be back as well. I was in Dublin this week for 3 days, flying out of London City Airport and back, which is a nice way of doing the travelling, I must say.
Oh, really?
Mainly because BA haven't got anything out of Heathrow on short haul at the moment, so
okay, right.
having to do battle with the M25 instead. But nonetheless, a very good week, but a busy one. So, but yeah, great to be back on the show, though. Really pleased.
Forgive my naivety here, Nev. Is there a reason why you choose to drive rather than sort of, train or...
Well, with the early flight out of City Airport, by the time I get on the train and do all of that business, I can't actually get there in time. I mean, there's no lounge at City Airport,
but
it doesn't really need one because it's just such a small and convenient airport.
Right.
I must say, and the boarding time and the departure and arrival is all very straightforward and very quick. So that saves a lot of time in itself.
Indeed, I bet.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, off topic there.
I have got a few questions about London City, but we'll cover that in a little while on the news, Nev.
Yes.
But he's back. I am so happy to say he's back, as we all are as a team, as he's been missing for quite a while, and we have blinking well missed him. It is, of course, the excellent man that is, well, he's signed off on more aircraft than we can possibly shake a stick at. It is, of course, Armando.
Good evening, gentlemen. Hello. Pilot Pip, who is basically an inspector,
right? Okay.
Scotland Yard inspector, has noticed that there is something on my face. Well, now I'm a dirty contractor jet pilot, so I had to have this issued to me. I think it's a more professional look. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Armando. You can do whatever the heck you like. We're just terribly jealous. That's what it is. It's like there's not many people who could do that and pull that off. I think that's.
Well, that's debatable if I'm pulling it off or not.
Okay.
So
okay.
It did start out as a joke. If you're listening to the audio version of this, well, I just. There's no need. You're not missing anything. But it started out as a joke, and then everybody just said, it's not terrible. So, by the way, we're talking about a mustache if you're listening to the audio version.
So you're not saying,
look at that.
You're not saying Armando to bleach it blonde.
I have an endorsement from Podcast Royalty. The APG show is in the chat room, and they've just said only real pilots have mustaches.
Good point. Well made. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. We're all good.
Yeah, there you go. No, but the 30-second version, as you guys know, I've been in training for the last 3 weeks on the Hawker. I can see why Pip loved that airplane. It is an awesome, awesome airplane to fly. And I actually had 3 weeks of simulator training, and then had no break, jumped right into the airplane as soon as I got qualified, jumped right into the left seat, which was pretty cool of my operator. And that's pretty much it. Other than more to come later, but we're buying an airplane. Megan and I are buying we're buying a little Super Cub. It's the opposite of a jet. We realized, what we want to do is go low and slow, and she got hooked and is working on her private pilot certificate now. So
wow. Oh gosh, she really has got the bug for it then.
A steerman flight or two. She did a introduction flight, and then she did an aerobatic flight in a steerman. So open cockpit with a parachute, the whole deal. After that, she said as soon as she felt, this is very idyllic, but as soon as she felt the wind in her hair and got to see, in our case, Lake Norman from the air at 1,000 feet, just going 80 miles per hour, she said, let's do it. Let's buy something that goes low and slow, and we can fly with the windows open. So we're buying a Cub.
Wow. Love that.
Pip's asking a question in the chat room, Armando. Which variant are you flying?
850 XP, and I also got a differences trained into the 900 XP, which is, as you know, just a few things here and there. But 850 XP is my primary, and it's also my primary job now. It's the same owner as the Pilatus, just they also own a jet. They actually own 2 Hawkers, so they're basically just moving me over to the jet, and I'll still fly the Pilatus.
Yeah, love it. I feel all emotional.
I know. We'll pause on that for a moment. Nev, we've got a little bit of stuff to talk about on our just weekly roundup and some news for this week, haven't we?
Yeah, we had some very sad news yesterday from Kirsty MacDonald. Kirsty is the wife of Ivor MacDonald, and it's with great sadness we've got to let you all know of his passing. He was a big part of our chat room community and the Aviation podcast family. Very sadly, Ivor passed away suddenly last Saturday, and all of us here at Plane Talking UK podcast send all of our condolences and thoughts to his wife Kirsty and the family. And it was a big shock, and he'll be sadly missed.
He will.
And the last time I saw Ivor was in February of this year. His wife and he were going off to Portugal for the week, and this is them with me at BA Lounge at Terminal 5. And then previously we met up at the RAF Museum at Hendon when Nick Anderson and co were out there doing an airline pilot guy visit. So very sad news. I'm very sorry to hear it, and just so grateful for his sense of humour and all the contributions that he made to the podcast. So I thought I would share that with you if you hadn't already heard.
Indeed. The thing that I'm loving the most about that particular picture, by the way, Nev, is there's proper PT UK lifestyle there with two good good coffees and a bacon sandwich. That's how things should be done, shouldn't it?
That's all you need, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
He'll be sadly missed from the chat room, that's for sure.
He will.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, Nev, you've also got some news this week, haven't you, on an update to that wonderful thing that we have here in the UK called a tax.
I mean, just in case there wasn't enough, cost of living crisis and everything going up in price, air passenger duty. The government have just announced new rates for the air passenger duty rates for the tax year 23 to 24, which starts from April 2023. Well, let's talk about what APD is. It's an excise duty which is charged on the carriage of passengers flying from a United Kingdom or Isle of Man airport on an aircraft that has an authorised takeoff weight of more than 5.7 tonnes or more than 20 seats for passengers. And these are divided into what they call a domestic band, Band A, Band B and Band C. But just to give you an idea of where this is at the moment, the the domestic band, so that's basic travelling within the country, on the lowest class of travel is £6.50, standard class is £13, and it goes right up to Band C. So if you're going over 5,500 nautical miles, The reduced rate is £91, but the standard rate is £200. So even if you've got frequent flyer air miles, you've got some free flights and that kind of thing, obviously you're still paying the air passenger duty, and it's really becoming very prohibitive, I would say, as well. And of course, if you're in a higher class of travel as well, then you're paying a lot more. It's a huge amount. So yeah, just another tax, just in case you didn't have enough of it. So I think it's awful, really, really shocking. And this stuff just only goes one way, doesn't it? It never goes down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't go the other way, does it? As you say,
No.
it's like once it's there, that's it.
No.
We're stuck with
Right.
it.
Right when everyone wants to get back flying and going on holiday and traveling to see friends and family again, they then get stuck with this on top of an already inflated ticket cost. But there we go.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the chat room, and let's say hello to everyone in the chat room this evening. Loads of the family in there tonight. Good to see you all in there. Lee Davies, hello to you. Richard Adams, Hobby Time is also in there. We have got Mazouz. Hello to you, Mazouz. We're going to be seeing Mazouz next week, aren't we? Actually,
is it next week? Probably, yes. If you say so.
It's
I haven't
next
looked
week.
at my calendar.
Yes.
I haven't looked that far ahead yet.
Tony S is also in the chat room. Pilot Logan Lynch, hello to you. Squawking 7700. Blimey, I've seen a few of those pop up on my phone this week, notifications. And we have also got Captain Ridiculous Wits, also to keep the humour up in the chat room. Pips also in the chat room, Plane Safety Podcast. Dirk S, hello to you, Dirk. Our main man, Micah, is keeping an eye on things with the blue spanner of doom. So thanks for that, Micah. Just make sure I don't miss anyone else. APG show obviously is in there. Richard Adams is in there as well tonight. Welcome to everyone. Oh, and Neil Lamworn as well is also joined us in there this evening. Hello to you, Neil. Good to see everyone in there. Don't forget, if you are listening to our dulcet tones through an audio podcast and you want to see what we look like on the in full HD on the screen on YouTube, check us out on YouTube. Just search for us, Plain Talking UK, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon next door to be notified when Matt is hitting that live button in the studio on a Friday night at 7 o'clock.
Indeed.
So we've got loads to get through on the show this week. Also, we are going to give you one more chance with the questions for our competition later on to win one of those tags, the military tag and the commercial aircraft tag we've got to give away in our competition. So stay tuned for that. But first, it's commercial news time. So if all the team is ready, let's go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
So kicking off this week's first news story then, it is all about Southampton Airport. And this one comes to us from bbc.co.uk. And Southampton Airport here in the UK have had their runway expansion approved, and it's going to go ahead. The Court of Appeal upheld Eastleigh Borough's council decision to approve plans for the expansion of Southampton Airport's runway by 164 metres or 538 feet. Now, the scheme was approved in April 2021, but campaigners claim permission was unlawfully granted. They called for a judicial review, but their latest attempt has failed. This marks the end of the legal challenge routes that could possibly be pursued against the plans campaigners confirmed. And the group opposed to the expansion of Southampton Airport, who are known as GOSA, Golf Oscar Echo Sierra Alpha Limited, had a claim for judicial review dismissed last October, but an appeal against that was accepted in December. In a statement, Southampton Airport said, as a result, there can be no further challenge to the legality of the Borough Council's decision on our runway extension, and Southampton Airport can begin a plan to deliver the scheme. The airport previously said its existing runway was one of the shortest in the UK and inhibited the use of larger aircraft such as the A320 and the Boeing 737. It said the runway expansion would protect jobs, generate an extra £240 million for the local economy by 2037. But campaigners objected on the grounds of climate change and noise after planning documents revealed that the number of people affected by noise would go from 11,450 in 2020 to 46,050 in 2020 or 2033 if the expansion went ahead. The airport has pledged to mitigate the concerns raised. So, as a bit of info, Southampton Airport's runway is 1,723 metres long and 37 metres wide. Looking at the performance chart figures for the Boeing 737-800, this needs, with a takeoff weight of 140,000 pounds, it requires 1,510 metres to take off. The A320 requires around 1,700 metres at the same weight, but these weights and these actually do depend quite heavily on weather conditions at the time. But yeah, Armando, what are your thoughts on this? Because obviously you've been training a lot on stuff like performance figures and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of variables in this too, with the weight of the airplane, the takeoff flap setting, how many passengers you have, how much fuel, where are you going. So this kind of, it's especially, I think I've learned over the years that over there in Europe, it's a lot more difficult. And I think rightly so, because your land is so much more precious over there, from what I understand, right? I mean, sometimes the land is incredibly difficult to come by. But in addition to just the runway length, if you extend the runway length, you also need to extend the safety zone, and then the approach lights, and then the antennas that go along with that. So it's not as simple as just extending the runway 538 feet. So 538 feet is probably going to equate to, an exponential number from that. And that can be a little bit difficult. Now, the carriers know this, and they'll plan appropriately. They'll know that they can only book so many seats on this airplane for weight and balance purposes, and then for performance purposes. So there's a lot more that goes into it. The media is the media, but then just, hey, here's the published performance numbers for a 737 or an A320.
Have you flown into Southampton before, Nev? Or
I can't remember. Do you know? I don't think I ever have. The only thing I do remember about Southampton was a business jet went off the end of the runway and went across the A20 or the M27 some time ago, long time ago now actually, landing with a tailwind too far down the runway. So that's a bit of a fail anyway. But no, from a commercial point of view, I'm glad that this is finally going through, because it's been years and years and years having a problem and just not having enough runway length to take sensible levels of passengers and fuel load off the deck. So that's good news. It means they'll be able to operate more charter flights from there, perhaps some more domestic services as well. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
I suppose on a safety point as well, Nev, if this does get extended, it also offers an extra airport to land in case of emergency for.
That's true. I mean, there's Bournemouth, Herne Airport just down the road as well. Yeah, I mean, Southampton's got actually very good facilities. I know a lot of my colleagues actually live around that area, and they're all fed up with having to traipse around to Gatwick or to Heathrow to get anywhere. So with a more local airport, I think that's going to be a very, very good thing.
What do you guys think about? I mean, there's also some advancements coming in regional transport aircraft. So the Bombardier Q400, Q800 still has some life left in it. The Embraer 195, right? That's perfectly capable of flying in and out of this airport. So do you think there's a market for 737s, or can you just have more destinations served with the larger regional jets like you flew into City?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting the amount of range you can get even off a short runway with those Embraer 190s. I noticed there was destinations, Ibiza, Madrid, so 98 passengers and luggage to that sort of destination off a very short runway at London City Airport is great. So I still think there's scope for the regional stuff as well, but I think Southampton probably would want to say that we can go quite a lot further because we've got more runway capacity, so they can start doing more flights down to Portugal and the north part of Africa and places like that.
Actually, Tony S has just said in the chat room, he says, I think Southampton will have a lot of potential, especially if the low-cost carriers move in.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, and Pip in the chat room is also saying the holiday charter market will like it, the Jet 2s and TUIs of the world. Yeah. That's just something I'm not incredibly familiar with. That's not a thing that exists here in the US. We don't have these sort of all-inclusive book a whole trip charter things, not at that level of 737s and things like that.
Yeah,
I've only ever seen it over there.
Big business for Jet2. Jet2 are very, very busy with their package deals that involve the flights and the hotel all in one. Yeah. So Matt, you've got the next story, and you love your vinyl, and Ryanair have set a new record.
Oh, have they? Right, okay. Yeah, okay, fair enough if you say so. It says it set a new passenger record. This is from the irishtimes.com, and the story goes, Ryanair flew almost 17 million passengers in July, the highest ever number that it has carried in a single month. The Irish carrier said on Wednesday that 16.8 million people flew with it in July, 13.5% more than the 14.8 million travellers it carried during the same month in 2019. The total was a new monthly high for the airline, beating its previous record of 14.9 million set in August 3 years ago before COVID curbs wreaked havoc with air travel. Ryanair's figures show that it sold 96% of the seats on its aircraft last month, which is slightly below the 97% recorded during the summer months of 2019. Michael O'Leary, chief executive of Ryanair Holdings, confirmed last week that the group hopes to fly 165 million passengers in its current financial year, which ends on the 31st of March. However, it cautioned that it would depend on a fresh COVID wave or a possible escalation of the war in Ukraine not hitting a still fragile recovery in the air travel over coming months. Ryanair has flown more than 62 million people since the start of April. The airline is offering 15% more seats on its planes than in 2019 over the summer, but may trim this back to closer to 10% over the winter. Just 9.3 million people flew with Ryanair in July last year when the EU formally launched its digital COVID certificate, which enabled most member states to reopen for travel. The airline sold 80% of its seats that month. Air Travel regards 2019 as the last normal benchmark year as pandemic restrictions either grounded or limited flying in 2020 and 2021. Many airlines are cutting capacity in the face of high fuel costs and bottlenecks across Europe's airports. Mr. O'Leary suggested last week that these trends could result in a general upswing in ticket prices over the coming months. I mean, that just sounds like an excuse to put the prices up, if I'm honest with you. But
17 million passengers in 1 month.
Yeah, it's a big number, isn't it? It is a really big number. As I say, and it's levels that we were sort of at, like, it's literally sort of bigger than post-COVID levels, which is a real sign, really, perhaps, that it is getting quite strong, the old aviation world again. If they could just sort out the problems at the airport, we might be back to normal.
Can you see Neil's comment, Matt, in the chat room? Neil Lamborn's comment.
But
Neil says he says 16.8 million all on one plane.
Possibly, yes, yeah. Well, he was keen for like standing room only, wasn't he, and things like that. So
no, it does show that things are getting back to some sort of normality, even with the issues that we're obviously having in the UK with airport and staffing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I'm actually on that note. Did anyone see that Dispatches episode that was on telly this week?
No, I didn't. No.
All about the issues with the airports. That was actually focused mainly on Manchester Airport. It was Dispatches do that documentary program. Very interesting, I will say. It was very interesting to see. I think it was Channel 4. I think it's Channel 4. Yeah, who show that? But
yes,
yeah.
That's right, yeah.
But yes, very interesting indeed. Nev, you have got the next story, and obviously it's all about BA with this one.
Yes, and just as we were saying how things are getting back to normal, of course, it's not quite normal because things are now going wrong with capacity at airports and that kind of thing. And it's on the telegraph.co.uk. It says British Airways is about to pause sales of long-haul flights to destinations such as New York as the airline battles disruption at Heathrow. The carrier has already suspended ticket sales for short-haul flights from the country's biggest airport for at least a week in response to a cap on daily passenger numbers. But a spokesman confirmed that BA cannot rule out disruption to long-haul routes out of Heathrow either, whilst the cap remains in place. It could push prices higher and means travellers trying to book last-minute journeys to further afield destinations such as New York, Dubai or Singapore may be unable to find seats. And budget rival Ryanair on Wednesday suggested it was well positioned to capitalise on the turmoil. Eddie Wilson, the chief executive officer of the carrier's main unit, claimed other airlines had been complacent about hiring enough staff for the summer. The time to hire for this summer was last October, he told Bloomberg. This isn't like running a warehouse where you can just get people. They've got to be part of a training process. Heathrow announced last month that a maximum of 100,000 people per day would be allowed to fly until September the 11th. It follows a similar move by Gatwick to limit the number of flights that can operate following chaotic scenes at Britain's busiest airports this summer, with large numbers of passengers subjected to hours-long queue times, missing or late baggage and last-minute cancellations. Well, I can confirm that is the case because I've been part of that.
Oh wow!
It's not a lot of fun, that's for sure at the moment. I think things have been a little bit better over the last week or so, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And coming out of Dublin, it was an hour going through security this week. There's just getting people back to work and obviously getting through the training process and getting them airside passes is taking a while.
And actually, one of the things they show in this program the other day, Nev, was when you're waiting for your baggage at the carousel at the airport, and they actually had hidden cameras, and there was passengers trying to climb through the where the belts come through from the actual bag. Yeah, passengers trying to climb through, and people were actually offering to go in there and help staff to get the suitcases onto the belts.
Yes, another top tip from your Uncle Nev here. Don't do that because that is considered airside, and you are going to be in a whole lot of trouble if you try that.
Whole heap of trouble.
Do you guys remember the video of the Russian that tried to do that? I think he was a little inebriated, but he went through the little curtains and went into the back and ended up going down a chute, and his backpack got caught on one of the slide intersections. I think we played that on the show.
Yeah.
Good. Nev, I was going to ask. I do actually listen to the show when I'm not around, because I think it's the best podcast out there. But I was saddened to hear of your luggage woes. Is it August? August is a busy vacation month over there. Is there any hope?
Yeah, I think with all the flying I've done over many years, this is only the third time I've been mishandled, as they say. But I think that the The problem is, I mean, this is why I bought the Apple AirTags now. So actually, at least I do know roughly where the things are going to be. But to be fair to the airline, you know, I got my the additional things I had to buy refunded, and you know, these things happen. But it's just between, well, halfway through July and the start of September is the school holidays. That's going to be the biggest, busiest time anyway. So there's always the opportunity for things to go wrong. But no, I mean, it was pretty inconvenient, but it wasn't, you know, it was hardly the end of the world, I've got to say.
Yeah.
So you had a chance to use the tags yet, Nev?
No, I haven't, because I've decided I'm going to carry things hand luggage only, basically. I'm not taking a chance. But I might be doing something in a month or so's time where I will have to check in some baggage. So I might, I'll try it then, see how I get on.
So Armando, you've got the next story, and this one has actually got a good piece of video with, and I'd love to hear your comments on this, Armando.
My goodness, it's a terrifying piece of video that Matt's going to play out here in a second. But as you guys know, the airport environment, there's all kinds of different tugs out there. There's tugs that scoop up. They have the, you know, electro tugs that can scoop up the front wheel of a smaller airplane. They have now these bigger tugs that can scoop up the front wheel with just a couple clamps of a big airplane like a 787 or something like that. But then the traditional style tug has the tow bar attached to the tug. So you've got a couple different pivot points. Matt's going to play out the video here in a second. But I have driven tugs, and they are a tricky maneuver. This particular tug was in LaGuardia Airport towing an American Airlines 737-800. I don't know, you know, the security camera is always hard to determine if it's real time or not. But when I saw it, it was going incredibly fast, and this tug driver was pulling this aircraft. He was making a sharp right hand turn, and the airplane, which weighs 91,000 pounds at the time, according to the airline, it's in that turn, the momentum of the airplane started driving the tug. It twisted that tow bar, and almost immediately it just broke, but it was still hooked. And as the plane was turning with its momentum, the nose wheel had already turned 90 degrees to the right, and the tug ended up underneath the aircraft. So the drive from which this story is from, they reached out to American Airlines to confirm the incident and check on the tug driver, which I'm sure had an emotional event there for a second. The airport official stated that there were, quote, no reported injuries to team members, but as a precautionary member, one team member was transported to a local hospital for further evaluation. Now, you can see that in the video that the driver was pinned in the cab of this tug, which has got to be incredibly scary. Maybe they had really good reflexes to kind of duck. Yeah, Matt has the pictures up there. I mean, that is seriously an emotional event. That is when you see this airplane, and once it starts going, like so many things in aviation, you're just along for the ride. He or she must have known that this was going to turn out not well for them and the airplane or anything like that. But apparently the American Airlines said that the airplane was empty at the time. It was being moved from a hangar to a gate. Obviously the plane was damaged, the tug was damaged. It was swapped out for another airplane, and they did tow this airplane back to the hangar for inspections and repairs. And as you can imagine, American Airlines is going to determine what exactly happened here. Now, one of the things that I'm not entirely sure on, and actually I wish Al was in the chat room, maybe Pip can answer this, but I thought it was required for someone to be on the airplane guarding the brakes when it was under tow. It's perhaps that's not a requirement. I'm not really sure about the 121 world, but man, after this, I bet you they probably will have somebody riding the brakes up top.
I was going to say, I thought you'd have someone at least on the flight deck with the tow, with the foot brake, toe brakes, or even with the hand on the
And presumably you'd have to have the hydraulics pressurized and the APU running in order to get brake pressure, I suppose. But
yeah, there's that. There's auxiliary systems. I'm not sure about, and emergency brake systems. I am not familiar enough with the 737's hydraulic system to know if they have. But even the maintenance personnel that are moving these aircraft should be trained on how to start up the APU and however it is, get some hydraulic pressure to those brakes. You're completely correct, Nev.
Yeah, I definitely think the Tug was a write-off anyway.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm amazed by the picture, the way that guy was pinned in that cab. I mean, jeez.
Squawk King 7700 says a little tape will fix everything.
Well, that is true. Speed tape.
It's amazing what you could do with gaffer tape, isn't it?
Dave Abbey actually just said in the chat room, or did it happen so quickly that someone in the cockpit didn't know there was a toe brake? So yeah,
could have been. Yeah, the first time I saw the video, I don't know if it was full speed or not, but it it happened real fast.
Yeah.
Wow, that's. I mean, I'm more astounded when I've watched that video loads of times now while we're doing this, obviously loading it up and stuff like that. The thing that's blowing my mind is that nobody was hurt. That's the thing that is melting my mind. I mean, that's incredible. Absolutely astounding.
And that is very true, Matt. Very true. Moving on to the next story. And good news, if you live here in the UK and you want to travel to Dubai and you don't want to have to travel 4,000 miles to Heathrow or Gatwick, because on the Bishop Stortford Independent.co.uk, this is Emirates are returning to Stansted Airport with daily long-haul services to Dubai. So Emirates have returned to Stansted Airport this week with a daily long-haul service to Dubai. The flight on Monday, the August the 1st, was the first by the flag carrier from the Uttlesford hub since March 2020, when COVID-19 paralysed the travel industry. Since restrictions eased, many airlines and airports have struggled to cope with the summer demand for holidaymakers. And last month, Emirates rejected entirely unreasonable and unacceptable calls from Heathrow airport bosses to curtail ticket sales to manage passenger numbers. And we covered that on a previous show. But in an exclusive interview with the Indie this week on August the 2nd, Richard Dewsbury, Divisional Vice President in the UK, was confident the carrier and Stansted could deliver the new timetable initially. Initially, Emirates plan 5 departures a week from Stansted, but flights will operate daily using a 777-300ER, offering passengers a choice between first, business class and economy fares. With the inbound flight EK65 arriving at Stansted at 1:30 p.m. and the outbound flight leaving at 9:10 p.m, Mr. Dewsbury said, "We have a very strong working relationship with Stansted and Manchester Airports Group, and we have planned the return to Stansted carefully." He said, "I'm confident that we have a good, stable operation," and the service proved to be extremely popular following its launch back in 2018. So Emirates' timely return is a huge boost to passengers in London and the east of England, yay, offering not only a vital link between the two destinations, but right across the globe, thanks to airlines' worldwide route network available via Dubai. So I had a quick look last night while I was putting the show notes together to see what it will cost you to go out to Dubai from Stansted, or London Stansted, in October. Obviously, it's off-peak, so it's going to be a bit cheaper. But flying out of Stansted in October for a return flight for 2 people is going to cost you £1,178, which is not too bad, I will say. If you want to go in business class for 2 people, that's going to set you back just over £5,500. And if you want to travel in Nev class or first class with Emirates, return flights from Stansted to Dubai will cost you a cool £15,842.
Wow. I mean, I was going to say on the plus side you can have a shower, but that's only on 380, isn't it? Actually,
yeah,
and I think it was the. It was the
Now, funnily enough, back in 2018, when this service was launched, a certain wife of mine, who's not far from me now, actually used this service from Stansted with Emirates, and was really good. It's it is a damn good service, I will say, having that link to Dubai so close to especially where me and Matt live here in the east of England. And the flight prices, to be fair, in economy, which we all know Emirates economy isn't shabby. It's one of the best economy services out there.
Right.
Just over £1,000 return for 2 people to Dubai. It's not bad. What do you think,
really?
Nev?
Yeah, I think that's a good price. Certainly if you live in that part of the country as well, as you guys do. That'll be a very convenient service. And pricing's pretty reasonable, I would say.
What about first, Nev? No?
Well, there's a bit hot, I think.
Yeah, a bit hot. Yeah, that's the one.
But I mean, knowing Emirates, it'll be a great experience.
I'm sure. But
their business and first class are very nice.
Yeah, but worth £15,000 or nearly.
Probably.
Well, it's not shy.
That is a heck of a lot of money.
That is a big chunk of money, isn't it?
For first class.
Pip is saying, "Oh, that's not bad. I've been looking at Dubai for October half term, and BA from London Heathrow was a lot more expensive, which is interesting."
Yeah. There we go. I've just helped Pip out there. I've just saved him all that money.
Well done, you.
It's okay, Pip. Just send the money in. Don't worry.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Matt, you have got the next amazing story.
Okay, well, let's find out together, shall we then? I'm a bit nervous because it says it's from the website foodandwine.com, and the headline is passenger fined over $1,800 over a couple of McMuffins in his luggage. Right, okay. There are a lot of reasons why you don't want to forget a pair of McDonald's egg and sausage McMuffins at the bottom of your backpack, but the possibility of a 4-figure government fine has to be near the top of the list. An as yet unidentified air traveller was hit with this is in Australian dollars, $2,664. In US, it's 1,846, and it was an infringement notice after a Darwin airport sniffer dog detected his leftover McMeal when he flew from Bali, Indonesia, to the northern Australian city. I should imagine the dog couldn't believe his luck. Anyway, according to a release from Murray Watt, Australia's newly sworn-in Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, the traveller was also carrying a ham croissant. His entire breakfast was deemed to be an undeclared biosecurity risk after being confiscated. The items were going to be tested for foot and mouth disease before being destroyed. This will be the most expensive Mackie meal this passenger has ever had. His fine is twice the cost of an airfare to Bali, but I have no sympathy for people who choose to disobey Australia's strict biosecurity measures, and recent detections show you will be caught. Watt said in a statement, Australia is FMD free and we want it to stay that way. Watt said that the McMuffins and croissant were sniffed out by Zinta, a biosecurity detector dog who has recently been put into work at the airport. It's excellent to see she's already contributing to keeping the country safe, Watt added. This is the second fast food related fine to come out of Australia this summer. In mid-July, an Australian woman had to pay the same penalty after bringing her unfinished Subway sandwich into the country. Jessica Lee said that she brought the footlong during a layover in Singapore and put half of it back into her carry-on bag. Yeah, it's worth looking in your carry-on to make sure that you haven't forgotten a bag of apples, a couple of McMuffins, or half a Subway sandwich. Who knew fast food could be so expensive? My big takeaway from that story, Richard Adams says, "Burger me, that's expensive." That's what he said. I mean, my biggest takeaway from that is why on earth would you go all the way? Why would you go all the way to Singapore and then buy a Subway sandwich? I'm sorry, that's my annoyance from there. But I mean, the frustration here is they make it very clear, don't they? Especially if you're going to New Zealand, is the same. They've got the same very, very strict rules about what goes into and out of the country. I mean, I remember coming back from New Zealand, and I bought my mum. What was that? I'm sorry, Mayman Mark is saying I've never paid more than $1,500 for 2 egg McMuffins. That's outrageous. See what he did there. But I remember coming back from New Zealand. I'd bought Mum a wooden carved vase type sort of thing, and I couldn't find the little certificate initially for taking it out of the country, because the rules are very strict as well. Going the other way, you're very limited about what you're allowed to take out of the country as well, and they nearly took that off me, because initially I couldn't find the little certificate that said it was a gift and was allowed to leave the country. But I mean, everybody knows this. Why would you be?
You've only got to watch
so
that
silly?
series on Pick TV, Nothing to Declare, here in the UK.
Do you think it's perhaps? So here's a thought for you then, as you say, because loads of us have seen that TV program. Do you think it's because we look at it and go, "Oh, it can't possibly be like that. It's all very exaggerated."
Well, it's all, when you watch that series, it's almost like they don't allow anyone into the country, because there's always someone who's got a bag of sand or some soil on their boots, or an unopened bottle of apple juice or something, and then that's it. No, you're not coming in the country. Out.
For your information, by the way, 2,664 Australian dollars works out to be about £1,500 here. Wow. Cheap as.
Perhaps, I wonder what Grant McCarran will have to say, because I know Grant does listen to the show. Messaged me a few times on the old social media.
We'll get tweets now.
We'll get tweets. We'll get messages, voice messages, and everything. Grant, why can't we come into your country? Look, come on.
No. I'm sorry. You can. You've just got to not be a moron and read the rules. And you can say that about any person visiting any country. Don't be a moron. Read the rules.
Oh my word! Richard Adams comment in the chat room right now.
Oh, go on.
Nev, what's he saying?
He said, I foolishly took thoroughly cleaned walking boots to New Zealand, but they pulled out the inner soles, found a tiny piece of straw, and kept me waiting 3 hours whilst they steam cleaned them.
Wow.
That was nice of them.
I mean, lovely.
Obviously, they're being paid overtime, those boys and girls, aren't they?
So I got a funny...
Let that be a lesson to you, Armando. If you want to go to Australia.
Well, funny story. I, used to travel for the military, and often, most of the time we were in civilian clothes, but I would have my uniforms in there, in the luggage. And in the military, you have airplanes with guns. Guns have explosive powder and residue. So often I would get asked or pulled aside because the machines would always tag positive for explosive material. Oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm in the military and I work with guns and ammo. It's a thing.
It's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I would always plan an extra 15-20 minutes to just have to explain that.
And do you say it like that in the enthusiastic way that you just did as well?
Yeah. No, it's very shy in the building. Oh, my fault, sir. You are the king.
Yes. I bow to your superiorness. Yes, absolutely.
Oh my word. Anyway, moving swiftly on before we upset anyone in Australia. Nev, you've got the next story, and we're going green for this next story.
Well, I'm interested in this because it's about time we did something like this, because we've had all this sort of digital business and paper-free travel during the COVID stuff. This is on Euronews.com, and it says that Finland could be the first country in the EU to trial a mobile app with digital copies of travel documents. The country has expressed its eagerness to test out a phone app that would hold digital copies of travel documents instead of traditional paper passports. With this new technology, passengers could send information to border authorities before they go abroad. Well, you kind of do that already when you have to send in your passport details. If you're going overseas, you have to put the advanced passenger information already in there in your booking, don't you? But according to a report in a Finnish newspaper, the European Commission reached out at the end of last year to ask if the country would be willing to participate in the pilot project. We're currently preparing a funding application for the Commission. The application must be submitted by the end of August. After that, it will be decided whether the project will be realised or or not. Mikko Vasanen, who's an inspector for the Finnish border guard, told the newspaper. So how is this going to work? Well, the Commission is encouraging some member states to trial digital travel documents. With the information gathered from these tests, it could introduce the ability to cross borders with nothing but a mobile phone app across the EU. Though it's still uncertain whether Finland's trial will go ahead, the digital documentation could be tested on crossings to Croatia. Some passengers will be asked to volunteer to download the app on their phones, and they'll then be able to send their documentation to border authorities before they travel. The information is checked in advance and deleted after the trip, Vasanen said. The first volunteers are likely to be passengers travelling between Finland and Croatia in spring 2023 at the earliest. Well, I think the idea sounds great, but I can just see there's opportunities for fraudulent behaviour and Photoshop and stuff like that.
Isn't there something like this already now with Verifly?
Well, yes, it's to the extent that you have to put in all your details in, whether you've been vaccinated and all the rest of it. You actually, in fact, I think you do have to take a picture of your passport, if I remember correctly. But of course, the advanced passenger information that you have to send anyway, although that's not sending your physical passport, it is actually putting your passport details in so that the receiving country can see who's coming into the country before they even get there. So interesting. I mean, I think we're all keen to do this kind of thing, but I wonder how realistic it's going to be with people trying to get into countries without authorization and this kind of thing.
I have to admit, I do like having a paper copy of things.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we shall follow it with keenness.
I don't know. I mean, as you say, you feel like you should be totally on board with it, because it does seem a bit bonkers in this day and age that things aren't more digitalized. Certainly when it comes to like digital documents and stuff. I mean, here in the UK we have like the government gateway, don't we, where very personal data, if you like, is gathered and used as a way to sort of prove who you are. And you think, why can't that same system be applied to having a UK digital passport? So all you've got to do is submit the photo and all that kind of thing. I mean, I guess that you've got that same argument, though, Nev, haven't you? Where that, the government, even the government gateway system, which is used by the HMRC, and that, I guess that is potentially open to abuse.
Sure. I mean, there's lots of information now on passports, the biometrics, and all the rest of it. And a lot of stuff is contained within the passport document itself, which it never used to have, exactly to prevent this, unauthorized people doing this or fraudulent activity, possibly. Because I like the idea of it. I mean, if they can make it work and they're sure about who's coming into the country and it is bona fide documentation, then that'll be a great thing. Yeah,
indeed. And of course, when the e-passport gates work, they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant, and you can literally whiz through. I mean, my new passport hasn't been so successful, but my old passport, it was great. It worked every single time. You literally pop it on the reader and then walk straight through. You'd literally jump like queues and queues of people and just go straight through. Miles High is saying, back in 1989, I travelled to Mexico and back from Toronto. I only had birth certificate and landing documents. Canadian Customs gave me royal hell coming back, but they did let him through. So it tells its own story, doesn't it? Yeah. And no photo ID. Oh, wow.
Oops.
Gosh.
And welcome to Jonathan Warner, who's joined us.
Oh, has he?
Good evening, Mr. Warner.
Good. Yes, he's admiring the photograph that's behind me, no doubt. One that he took at Riyadh a couple of weeks ago.
So Armando, carry on, Nev.
Well, I was just going to say, also in the chat room is Evan. Evan from Australia is joining us. Joining us just in time after our Australian McMuffin story. You're going to have to go back and hit rewind for that one. What I think he's gotten back in the air after a little bit of a respite. I believe in a Cirrus, right? Beautiful pictures from Evan on his social media.
Yes,
I actually really enjoy that, because flying in Australia and New Zealand is on my bucket list one day. I want to come down there and fly. Not that I'm asking to fly a Cirrus in Australia. I'll rent my own airplane, but you can come with, since it's probably more legal. Anyway,
who needs legal?
Yeah.
Anyway, good evening as well to community member Sturman. Hello to you, Sturman. Good to see you in the chat room as well this evening. And Armando, it seems like we keep giving you stories with rather dramatic videos.
Yeah,
this one is interesting, and I think it's made its way through social media also. And I know we have quite a few general aviation pilots in the chat room, so I'd love to hear their take on it also. But I'll give you my take. I'll read the story first. A pilot and 2 passengers have been taken to hospital after a plane crash at Cotswold Airport. Emergency services attended the scene this morning, or I think this was a couple days ago, after the light aircraft overshot the runway and then ended up in the ditch on the A429. The road near Kemble was closed in both directions as emergency services responded to the incident and dealt with the debris. The AAIB is investigating the incident, and a spokesperson for the Wiltshire Police said shortly after 10:30 a.m. today, they responded to reports of a light aircraft which appeared to have overshot the runway, ending up in a ditch, as we just said. There were no reported deaths or serious injuries. The pilot and 2 passengers have been taken to the hospital as a precaution. Multiple Dorset and Wiltshire fire and rescue crews were also sent to the scene, but those on board the aircraft had actually self-rescued before their arrival. Crews from Stratton, Cirencester, and Tetbury attended the incident. And as I said, they had already self-extracted. The incident was scaled back as they sort of approached. And as Matt is playing the video there, you can see that the aircraft was this. It's just such an interesting video. It is at incredibly high speed, and the pilot somehow manages to miss a couple of Airbuses and threads the needle right between them. I mean, avoiding probably the nose wheel of one of these Airbuses by, I can only imagine, just a few feet. Just a terrifying moment. Again, I'd love to hear from the chat room what you guys think about this. The airplane, to me, is traveling at such speed that I think this may have been a mechanical malfunction. I don't think this was just a standard pilot error, because you have to be really far off. And Jonathan Warner is saying the same thing. How did they end up so far from the runway? I think, Matt, we have an airport diagram.
Oh, yes, we do.
That we can put up.
Absolutely.
If you're watching on YouTube, it's a pretty long way from the runway to where these aircraft are parked, and the highway, the A429, sort of goes along the side of the airport. And even in the worst day, and this was from the video, it looks like a completely clear VFR day. So what I think happened here is a stuck throttle or something like that, or a broken throttle cable. But that aircraft was traveling so fast that I actually do think it was a mechanical malfunction. Now, the fact that they threaded the needle between those Airbuses, went through the airport perimeter fence, across the road, and ended up, Matt, I think we've got a picture of the wreckage where it did end up.
We haven't, unfortunately. No, it's the image wouldn't load, sadly. So
okay, well, yeah. It ended up balled up in the trees, just in pieces. The fuselage held, and I'm just amazed that nobody was trapped or hurt in this incident. I guess we don't, maybe just light injuries, but my take on it is this was a mechanical malfunction. And now I'm telling you from firsthand, when things start going wrong, unless you practice these things, these emergencies all the time in your head, and you're always playing that what if game, Squawking 700 on the chat room.
Carlos has popped it up for us.
Yeah, there we go. Just for the benefit of those watching on YouTube, there's the picture of the aircraft, said aircraft there. I'm actually surprised, Armando, because I know obviously the fuel is is stored in the wings on these particular.
It is, and sometimes you just get lucky and the wings snap clear off and the fuel just spills out and doesn't catch fire. Dirk, Miles High in the chat room are also kind of leaning towards a throttle stuck on landing. Squawking 7700, couldn't they just chop the mixture? Yeah, that's exactly what I probably would have done. Now we don't know. Maybe when they hit when they touch down, that's when the malfunction happened. And at that point, you know, you're kind of along for the ride, like I said in the previous story, and you get this sort of fog of war thing going where you know what. There's a couple things you can do. You especially in a Piper, you can turn the fuel valve to off. That takes probably about 15 seconds for it to wind down
through. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can pull the mixture. That's going to take 5 to 7 seconds for the engine to sputter and stop. You can turn the mags off, the magnetos off. That's going to take a couple seconds for it to stop, and if you're going at such high speed, it's still going to windmill a little bit.
And of course, a lot of this, Armando, as well is, and I know it's going to sound slightly strange here, but I'm going to refer back to the whole Sully thing. Is you know, the reaction time of you thinking, what on earth is going on here? Like, sort of like, you know, because it's going to take a minute or two for you to realise that something's wrong, and there is that strong chance that at that point it's already too late. Mm-hmm. You know, while you're trying you're thinking as fast as you can on your feet, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it's
like a cartoon. Can you imagine pulling the throttle lever to idle and it coming off in your hand and you staring at that cable
thinking, what on earth is going on here? Yeah, absolutely.
By the time you look at the end of the frayed cable and go,
oh
my.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, flipping it.
Flip.
He's an unscientific point of view from me, as always. Wouldn't they be at idle power anyway if they were landing, or if it had just landed?
True.
Should have been, unless and I thought about that too. Unless this was a takeoff, and I haven't seen any kind of Flight Radar 24 tracks. I don't know. The story from ITV says that they were landing and overshot the runway, but as we all know, the media, right? So they could have been on a takeoff roll, could have been a rudder malfunction on a takeoff roll, stuck throttle on a takeoff roll. You know, we don't know yet. I will be interested to see, Nev, what exactly happened here.
So I'm just running that video again because I know sometimes CCTV can make things look faster than it actually is. And as it comes to the end of the video there, it looked like about a second, if you see what I mean, because we only see the clock very, very briefly on there. But it does appear to be moving at a normal pace, if you see what I mean. So that does appear to be live timing, if you see what I mean.
I've got to say, he done a hell of a job steering that aircraft around those A320 nose gears.
Well, because it's clipped the wheel, hasn't it? You can see, like, you know, you've lost. You see a bit of the wing fly off there, don't you? With it, I haven't made that up. Have I ever got that right? Hang on. Let's, one more time for luck. I'm sure I see it clip the nose wheel on the 380 there.
Have a look.
The red wing.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. And it's clipped, and it takes a part of the wing off as it goes round.
Squawking 7700 said in the chat room the PA-28 had veered off the runway during a touch and go.
Oh.
And the accident happened in daylight VMC. So which is kind of, we're both right, Nev.
Yeah.
So it was a landing and a takeoff.
Right.
So maybe he did actually have
power on,
reasonably high throttle setting, perhaps.
Yeah, and a directional control malfunction.
So do you think maybe a bounce or something, and it's, you know, triggered? So I mean, we're speculating, aren't we? We should wait till we get the official report. Sorry, I'm getting a little overexcitable. I do apologise.
and we'll see the preliminary. I think the AAIB always puts out a preliminary report before that, you know, year-long final investigation.
So Nev, carry on, Armando.
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay, but at least they weren't hurt.
No, that is a very good point.
Astounding.
Yeah.
It's another one that's a bit of a shock.
I know. It's been a hectic show tonight. Yeah. Nev, you've got the next story, and we're going back to London City.
We are, and it's on cityam.com, and it says that London City Airport is on track to reach the 3 million passenger mark at the end of the year as numbers continue to soar. The airport announced today that 640,000 passengers travelled through its gates in June and July, whilst August forecasts expect another 300,000. We've made a conscious effort with our airlines to attract more leisure routes and passengers this summer, and the fact that we could reach close to 1 million passengers for the period is testament to the resilience of our operation and quality of the passenger experience we offer, said Chief Executive Robert Sinclair. London City was left largely unaffected by the recent travel chaos, as it said that it gets passengers from the Docklands Light Railway to their gate in less than 25 minutes. Nevertheless, the airport urges passengers to show up 2 hours in advance to ensure a smooth run of operations. The airfield has recently made the headlines when it launched a 10-week consultation on its proposal to increase passenger capacity to 9 million by 2031. And it was very smooth for me this week, I've got to say, going through City Airport. And the other thing that they've got at least one of the baggage scanning machines where you don't have to take anything out at all. You put everything through, including all your liquids. Now, there was a bit of a queue at the other end of it because so many bags got pulled out for separate screening, or at least conversations with the passengers. But it did make things move a lot smoother. Although, of course, the poor folks at the airport spend so much of their time telling people not to take the stuff out of their bags. You know, the iPads, the PCs, laptops, phones, and liquids. But nonetheless, London City is a good experience, I must say. They've done a nice job with that. And judging by the people that were there, there were very few business people there. It was nearly all holiday and leisure travellers. So it was
just a bit of a random question there. What's the parking situation like at London City?
Well, I wasn't able to sort of pre-book parking there this time. It was all full up. I mean, I think I could have parked at the airport had I just turned up, but it would have been really expensive. So I decided to go down the night before and stay at the Doubletree Hotel, just about a 15-minute walk away. I parked there for £12 a night. So I mean that's
not too bad, is it?
Bearing in mind Heathrow's £48 a night minimum.
Yeah.
That's not bad going. Obviously I had to pay for the fuel and everything to get to and from the airport as I took the car. But it was for me it was worth going down the night before rather than have to worry about what's the traffic going to be like in the morning. But of course if you're travelling on the Docklands Light Railway or public transport and all that's working okay, then it's a good option. So,
as long as there's no strike, of course.
There is that, yes. Yes.
Now, Matt, you had the McMuffin story earlier on.
I did.
In the show, and you've got another shocking story.
Have I? Yes. This is out of London City is featuring very highly in our stories today, and I look forward to comment on this from our London City expert in a moment. It's cityam.com is the website. No, I'm at the wrong thing. Moving on to the next one.
Wrong
I'm totally. Ignore me. I'm having a moment. There we go. mylondon.news is the website, and the headline, it's got nothing to do with London City at all. Wizz Air passengers get £80 phone bill after calling £1.45 a minute helpline to try and get a refund. Oh dear. Wizz Air passengers have slammed the airline over its £1.45 a minute customer service phone line. That means some are racking up huge bills trying to talk to staff. One passenger revealed online that they had spent €60 in phone charges trying to speak to someone, while someone else racked up a bill of over £80. Following a period of travel chaos, many passengers have experienced delayed or cancelled flights in recent weeks. Many are now trying to get refunds and assistance, but are still struggling to do so due to the company's phone rates. One unhappy passenger took to Twitter and said normal airlines have free phone numbers to call customer service to open a case, and they update you and chase about the lost lost luggage could be with Wizz Air. There is no one to talk to, no updates, and no one response. Another customer who has been trying to speak to a member of staff tweeted, "Here's an idea. How about getting real people to answer phone calls at a free or local rate rather than the extortionate £1.45 per minute, where you take ages to answer, and at the first mention of the words refund, cancellation or money back in full, the line goes dead." A third passenger similarly complained about racking up a large phone bill and said, "I'm trying to get in contact with your call centre for 3 days now. I've spent €60 just in phone traffic to speak with someone without success, and the call gets very close." Again, the call gets closed every time. In addition to charging customers £1.45 per minute to speak to a member of customer service, there is also an additional call centre transaction fee to all transactions that are available online. This call centre transaction fee is not refundable. A Wizz Air spokesperson told My London, in the event that Wizz Air cancels a flight, passengers will be offered a range of options, including alternative flights with Wizz Air, a full refund, or a £120 in airline credit, both of which we aim to process within a week. I mean, I suppose the problem here is in this day and age, we are very much encouraged to do everything online, and I suppose the idea behind the expensive call rate number is to discourage people from phoning in to get their problem sorted. Now, there are some occasions, of course, where it isn't possible to sort something out, like, online. I mean, in theory, you should be able to do everything through your account, but I mean, presumably they booked the tickets using the website in the first place. I don't know. I understand why people are frustrated, but I do feel this is one of those stories where I feel like we haven't got all of the information here.
I mean, most companies now, Matt, you'll know yourself. Most companies nowadays, online companies, or even not online, well, companies that have websites, have that kind of online chat where you can chat to an actual human, but it's through a chat, like a messenger kind of style thing.
Indeed. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy that they're charging a £1.45 per minute. That's as an American traveling over in Europe, there were situations where I didn't have cell phone service. I didn't have data. Perhaps I'm using someone's phone to call. I couldn't just get on an app. So then I have to find an internet cafe or something to try to talk to somebody. And I'm paying for that per minute. I mean, it's pretty far-fetched to me. Not far-fetched, obviously it's real, but like to have customer service that isn't toll-free or, a free call. It was criminal, as Pip said.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose because I do work for a company that relies very heavily on its call centres, I can kind of see where they're trying to go with this, as I say. And it's like, I mean, if there almost needs to be the ability, like if you booked your ticket using a call centre, you should be able to use call a call centre to do something about it and not be absolutely ripped off. I do think those fees are ridiculous. I mean, you could sort of you could wear it if it was like 20p a minute or something like that, because you just think, okay, but I mean, £1.45 is extortionate. That I'm not condoning that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just trying to get my head round, I'm trying, if you like, to try sort of see if I can see it from their point of view, and I admit I am struggling to find,
especially if you're if you're waiting to connect and you're listening to really poor audio music,
poor quality,
sounds really terrible.
Yes. Yeah, this is it. Tony S is suggesting at £1.45 a minute, you definitely need to borrow someone else's phone. I think that is one solution, of course. I mean, it may end a friendship or 12. But
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Right, so that is where we are going to bring the commercial news segment to a close this week. Loads to come still in the show, including that competition as well, where we're giving you guys and girls the chance to win those tags, those aviation tags, one military and one commercial. Questions coming up a little bit later on the show. But first, it's time to hand over to Nev to introduce the next part of the show.
Thanks, Carlos. Yes, you'll remember that he and I were over at Seething a few weeks ago for their flying. Really enjoyed that, and we did some great interviews there. We've got some great ones coming up in the following weeks as well. But this is a really interesting one. We went up to the tower at Seething, and we spoke with Michael, who runs the ATC facility there, and a fascinating chat with him. I think you'll really enjoy this as well. So let's go over to Carlos in the tower.
So you join me in the control centre here at Seething, where all the kind of the technical stuff is, and where they look after the aircraft that are flying in on today's flying. And I'm here with Michael. Michael, you are in charge up here. Is that right?
I'm the senile air traffic controller.
And it is obviously it's a live room, so there's stuff going on.
Sierra Whiskey Noonan traffic. It's 3207. I'm the senile air traffic controller. We're not really air traffic controllers. We're air ground radio operators. That's all we are. We're not. We can't give commands or anything like that. But we just give airfield advice and general stuff like that.
But you're here for the safe operation of the airfield.
We try to make it safe. To make it safe. Hopefully, we do.
So, how long have you been doing this, Michael?
I've been a member here since 1960 when the club first started. So quite a long while. I'm probably the oldest operational member now, am I, Brian? I think, something like that. Yeah, probably. Anyway, I'm 82. So I've been here a long while. I know how the club's evolved over the years, know all the history of the club. Followed it for years, started to fly in I got my licence in 1970. So I've been flying ever since. And doing air traffic control or air traffic here for many years. Many years.
So is there, Michael, a specific qualification you have to do to be able to set up here and do what you do?
Yes, there is now. You have to do a test to operate air ground radio now, but you didn't. We operate on grandfather rights with 3802 certificate, I believe. That's the number.
So is it an easy course?
It's not bad. I think it's about 2 hours. There's a written and a practical. So I think it's about 2 hours, but it's not hard to do. You just got to study radio work and know the correct terminology for the particular airfield you're at.
And obviously, Seething, you've got an excellent view here from the tower here at Seething.
Yeah, we're pleased with our tower. We built it ourselves, as we did everything on the airfield. It's all done by the members. So Brian did all the electrics, all the computer systems. We've got everything on here we need. We've got cameras, we've got weather, absolutely everything.
We're going to circuit to the west, and then we're going to QS right onto Norwich 119,
we can move stuff around exactly as we want, so we can move the aircraft around the screen. Not on this one, but you can do. So we've got a lovely setup here, probably better than most airfields in the UK.
So what kind of systems, for the benefit of the listeners and the viewers, what kind of systems do you use in place here? Obviously, I've seen you've got kind of, is it Flight Aware you're using here?
Yes, we're using Flight Aware just to pick up any aircraft that are transmitting the correct data. It doesn't pick up all, as you know. We've got all the systems on here, so we've got our own weather systems. We've got the Norwich, TAF and Met on there. These are aircraft that are booked in, some of them. We can flip that screen. I can't do it. Brian could probably do it to show you, but we can flip that screen to get cameras and all sorts up, can't we, Brian? He's the expert, technical expert. I just yap to people.
So on days like today, when you've got all this amount, there was a lot of aircraft.
Yes, we had
coming today.
38 total so far.
How much more of compared to a normal standard day, what the workload is obviously
Our standard day here is probably about 10 aircraft, maybe 15 to 20 movements. But we've had 38 aircraft in, which is a lot. And it's really a bit much for us. We can handle it. We can, provided we've got the ground crew organised and everything to sort it.
So these aircraft that have come in today, they tend to call you. How far ahead do they call you up?
They call us out about 5 to 6 miles, perhaps up to 10 miles. And then all we give them is what the airfield runway is in use and the QFE. That's all we give them. And when they go out, basically all we give them is the wind speed and the QNH.
Excellent. And obviously, with the information you give them, this is obviously live information here you've got in front of you. You can give them exact weather and all the bits and pieces for them, for the guys flying in.
Yeah, that works well. The system is very, very good. And we monitor Norwich radio on there, Norwich air traffic on there. This is our main radio, so the system's good. It's a good output. We've got good aerials. Everything works.
Do you ever have any contact with any of the other control centres in the air, like Norwich? You say?
Yes, we've got Norwich. We've got 2 members who are Norwich air traffic controllers. They come over and help us sometimes if we're busy. Could have done with those today. Would have been nice, but they're both off working somewhere else, so we didn't get them. But we've always had a good rapport with Norwich. Yeah, works brilliantly. They're good to us. They know our aircraft. They know everyone who flies from here. The controllers are good. The owner's no problem.
How important do you think the days like today for seething? Obviously, there's a lot of people here. A lot of people have turned up.
I mean, we're back to where we were. This is what we did. We did this 3 times a year. This is the first time for 3 years at least that we've had anything like this at all. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
It's a great turnout.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. We're really pleased with it.
And how long do you think, obviously you're up here every day, you obviously enjoy what you do up here?
We love it, yeah, love it. Absolutely can't beat it. Yeah. When there's 2 of us, that's great. We have a good rapport, and they come up and see us. Everyone comes up and brings us coffee up and things like that. So really brilliant, yeah. It's a good club, really enjoyable to be part of it.
And you're a pilot as well?
I'm a pilot as well, still, just. Yeah.
So what aircraft do you fly here at Seething?
Cessna 150 Aerobat. You might have seen it come in with the chickens.
The chickens, yeah. We saw Mike.
We saw Mike doing the chicken run. But they did a wonderful trip with that. Did he tell you about his trip?
We did have a good chat with Michael about his trip to Croatia.
Yeah, 3,000 miles and 40 hours of flying. And they did really well because Mike's only a low-hour pilot. He's not a massively qualified chap. He's only low-hourred, really. Bloody brilliant, I think.
You've got a few hours under your belt, though.
I've got about 3,500, probably, roughly, as a private pilot, and mainly do put on my hobbies were aerial photography, really, which I spent many years doing. I've got probably the best library of aerial photography in Norfolk and Suffolk and in the world.
Oh well, what was that?
So I do Norfolk, Suffolk, East Anglia, basically. I've got 200,000 images. Brian, my Confederate, maintains it all. Runs a website.
Wow.
And everything we do is done for charity. So over the past 20 years, we've probably raised 300,000 or 400,000 total.
Wow, that's amazing.
For sales of photos, because as a private pilot, I'm not allowed to sell photos for hire or reward, or to fly for hire or reward. So everything we do is done for charity. So we run a charity account. We don't touch any money at all. The people pay into the charity account for a picture, and that's how we do it. Works well.
So I could call you up and just ask you to come take a picture of my house in Bungay.
Well, you could, yes, and I've probably got one anyway. I probably wouldn't need to come. Probably got one. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Michael, it's been lovely to talk to you this afternoon. Nice to hear about what you do as well here, because it's obviously one of those things. We obviously see the pilots who fly and the pilots who fly.
See what we do up
but it's obviously you guys which help to keep everything.
Excuse the coffee cups and everything anywhere, but we couldn't get down today.
Trust me, me and Nev, we've been up to Heathrow, the control tower there, a number of times, and it's just the same. It's just the same.
Yeah. Now we're only on a very small scale as we gather, but we enjoy it, and we think we've got a good setup, and we try and be professional or semi-professional and do everything properly if we can.
It's a lovely control room, I will say. It's very well appointed in here.
Yeah, it works well. I mean, it's air-conned, and we keep the aircon set the same all the while throughout the year, so we can come up here in the winter and it's still 19 degrees.
So, Michael, I'm going to ask you one last question before we finish. And it's one of those questions we ask everyone we talk to on the show. And obviously, we've got all these different aircraft out here at the moment. We've got Cubs, we've got the Cirrus is there, we've got the Easies.
Radio Golf Delta Oscar Mike Sierra, radio check and request airfield information for all VFR flights. Thanks for the shots well.
Mike Sierra's 24 left hand, 1017 QNH.
24 left hand, 1017, and I'm going to taxi to Bravo, I guess.
Roger, to Alpha, call when ready at Alpha.
Taxi to Alpha. Apologies.
And that's live, honestly. Yeah. So, given the chance to fly any aircraft, whatever it is, military, retired GA, commercial airliner,
what would I go in?
What would you love to go and jump in now and take for a whiz round seating?
Down there, because I learnt in one of those. That's the first time we've had a messenger in for years. We had an Alpha India Lima here, and we had that here many years. So that's why we gave him a prime parkman spot.
Oh, I did wonder why that was. Yeah.
So we got him in there and we fitted him in there. But they're lovely. I mean, you fly with a stick between your knees, and oh Jesus, they're noisy old buggers. So they're not like ours. What we've got now. But that's the one I'd pick at the moment.
Excellent choice. Well, Michael, thanks for your time.
Yeah,
it's been lovely to speak to you. And have a great rest of the day. I'm sure you've got more aircraft due in, no doubt.
We've got about 4 or 5 hours. We've no more due in now. I should think they'll start going off now. Yeah.
Right, thank you, Michael. Then take care.
Okay, cheers.
I mean, what an incredible space that they've got there. I mean, it's a proper control tower, isn't it?
Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
And Mike gave us a lot of his time, and he's one of these chaps that you can just imagine the stories that he could tell. And looking through his photography archive as well, it is phenomenal. And I think as Richard just suggested, we should put a link for that on the PTUK website, which we are happy to do.
Absolutely.
We'll put that on because it's a fascinating look.
Richard's made a comment actually in the chat room as well, hasn't he, Nev?
Yes, Richard says, great when you get an AG operator who flies GA and understands the issues typical weekend pilots get, which is very reassuring. So he's been there and done it himself. So
literally got the T-shirt. And how old did you say he was?
82.
My goodness me.
Jonathan Warner also said actually he loved the radio interruptions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought about taking those out, but actually I thought it added a lot more to it by keeping it in. So I'm glad we did keep those in.
Yeah.
It was just shows how well it is a live,
a live airfield, active tower that we were in. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, big thanks again to all the team at Seething for giving me and Nev, pretty much access everywhere on the flying day. Thanks to everyone at Seething, and also thanks to Dan again as well for all his help on the day.
Honestly, you two love a little bit of airside, don't you? Honestly,
I know. So, what's coming up next then? Well, it's time to hand things over to our resident grey expert of the team. It is, of course, Armando.
Matt, there's no time to think. If you think, you die. Hit the button.
What's up, Bogies 13550, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay, 108 Bogies.
I gotta admit, I'm impressed. Your training is progressing nicely, young Padawan. I've tried to fool you. You're almost to your check ride.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. From you, I will take that. Thank you.
Speaking of thank yous, I want to thank our community for sending. A couple of you sent this one in from a few different sources. This particular story is from defensenews.com. The United States Special Operations Command has chosen the AT-802 Skywarden. It's made by L3 Harris Technologies and the company Air Tractor, which is a crop dusting company. They've selected this aircraft for its armed overwatch program. Now, this is kind of unique. This indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract will be worth up to $3 billion with a B US dollars. That's according to an L3 Harris release on Monday. The initial program contract award is for $170 million. The Air Tractor is an aircraft manufacturer from Olney, Texas. typically makes firefighting aircraft. You've probably seen them in use out west and in Australia as a marking aircraft, sort of a forward air control aircraft. And they also make crop dusters, which is where it got its original design from. So the initial production of the Sky Warden is going to take place at Air Tractor's facility in Olney. L3 Harris then will modify those airplanes into the Armed Overwatch mission configuration in Tulsa, Oklahoma at its modification center. That's beginning in 2023. L3 also said that some of the work will also take place in Greenville, Texas, Rockwall, Texas, where they have a pretty big materials manufacturing facility, as well as Waco and Nashville, Tennessee. Air Force Special Operations Command's Armed Overwatch program aims to build a fleet of up to 75 flexible fixed-wing aircraft suitable for deployment to austere locations with little logistical requirements to keep them operating. SOCOM, the Special Operations Command, is planning for the single-engine Sky Warden as AFSOC, the Air Force Special Operations Command. I think we've talked about that on the show, two totally different but similar chains of command. This aircraft is going to be able to provide close air support, precision strike, and armed intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions for counterterrorism operations and irregular warfare, or anything that's non-standard tanks rolling across the countryside, as we're seeing there in Eastern Europe. The Air Force Special Operations Command commander, Lieutenant General Jim Slife, said last year that he had hoped the Armed Overwatch aircraft will be suited for pressuring extremist groups in places like Africa and the Middle East, where the airspace is essentially uncontested. So the Air Force is moving to establish these airplanes as it shifted its primary focus from some of its more complex and expensive to operate fighters and bombers, and away from combating terrorist groups and violent extremist organizations in places like the Middle East. Last year, the commander kind of insinuated that AFSOC would be replacing its aging and expensive U-28 Draco ISR aircraft, which is the modified PC-12. This they called it rare. It's not that rare. It's a Pilatus. This aircraft required specialized equipment and training to maintain. I actually take issue with that statement. It actually does not take a lot of training. It's a commercially produced aircraft with not a lot of modifications to it. What is expensive about it to the U.S. taxpayer is that it came with contract maintenance. It is not internally maintained by the U.S. Air Force, therefore making the entire program just a little bit more expensive. And by a little bit, I mean millions and billions more than it should have been. But the Air Force Special Operations Command said that even after the Sky Warden is delivered, the U-28 will still be needed for its ISR missions and search and rescue and humanitarian relief efforts. So Jonathan Warner reached out to me and kind of asked why they chose this over the AT-6, which is, Beechcraft Textron T-6 Texan 2, basically, with a bunch of missiles and guns on it. What is unique about the AT-802 is that you can take the wings off and throw a couple of them in a C-17 or a couple of them in a C-5, and you can transport them across the world fairly quickly, drop them off. I'm going to give you a completely hypothetical scenario. Let's say there's a humanitarian crisis in West Africa. So you can park a couple of these up in RAF Mildenhall, have a C-17 come through. They're already ready to go. Rolling chassis, the engine's on it, everything. The only thing that's off it is the wings. And then you can throw two of these on a C-5 or a C-17, possibly even three of them, transport them down to, let's say, a large airport like Dakar, Senegal International Airport, and offload them there. Within about 2 hours, they can put the wings on and they can fly out to an austere location and basically operate for the next 30 days or something like that off a dirt road, because it's a crop duster. It's got, it's a tail dragger. It's got beefed up chassis and gear and all that stuff. And with only about 20 people, you could probably run a 30-day austere operation using surveillance technologies. What you are losing is this is 2-person crew instead of a 4-person crew in the Pilatus or 5-person crew. But that's okay, because with the advances in technology, you can offboard a lot of this stuff through satellite communications. So that is the short answer as to kind of why they probably chose this aircraft. And it's also got an incredible range, really not range, more endurance than range, where you can do a lot of, pretty long 6-7 hour loiter times. And very quickly it can land, reconfigure from a surveillance role into an armed role and put some rockets and missiles into it. So there you go. Very unique. I think we've been talking about this program for 3 years on the show. So they finally chosen the airplane.
It's a stunningly beautiful aircraft, isn't it?
Is it? You see, now I was literally going to make comments to the exact opposite of this.
Dear.
A hideous-looking monstrosity that is. That just looks horrible. I'm sorry.
I think I stand by my comment in the chat room.
For the first time ever, me and Pip agree on something. I never thought that day would happen.
It is a mishmash of 3 different aircraft with a greenhouse on top.
Agreed. Yeah.
Pip does say, if I saw something that ugly coming at me, I'd surrender. That's what we're banking on.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. I'm approaching this from completely the wrong end. Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
It also looks like the Pixar. I think it's Pixar movie.
Yeah.
Planes.
Oh yes.
Yeah. The Dusty Crop Hopper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've got
there you go. So
DVD. I know.
Carlos, this next story, you can abridge it. You can kind of stop when we get the whole story. But I thought it'd be nice to throw a Coast Guard story, because we don't talk about the Coast Guard that often.
No, and this is a good story, considering one of the charities that I'm donating to for my birthday is the Air Ambulance, but here in the UK. But this time comes to us from dvidshub.net, and it's all about rescuers on the Rio Grande. Coast Guard team saving lives on the border. Search and rescue cases typically have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Dispatchers receive a call for help and work swiftly to pinpoint locations of anyone in trouble. Coast Guard crews jump into their boats or aircraft, rush to the scene, and render assistance. Then the crews bring the distressed, shaken boaters back to shore, deliver the wounded or ill to higher medical care, and reunite families with their missing loved ones. So search and rescue on the Rio Grande, however, is different. Why is it different, Armando? It's a Rio Grande. Coast Guard members patrolling a 47-mile uncharted portion of the riverine border between US and Mexico often find themselves swept up in the middle of dire emergencies, compelled to react to life or death circumstances with little or no forewarning. On the early morning of June the 2nd, an underway Coast Guard crew received word from US Border Patrol agents there might be non-citizens trying to cross the river around the bend up ahead. Petty Officers Second Class Jarrett Guerrera, coxswain of the 29-foot response boat small crew from Coast Guard Maritime Safety and Security Team Houston, eased the boat's throttles forward, peering through the shadows for signs of movement. His 2 crewmen, Petty Officer Second Class Jake Flores and Petty Officer Third Class Corey Connolly, clicked on their flashlights and maneuvered to the bow of the boat to stand lookout. Suddenly, their flashlight beams fell upon an overturned raft in the middle of the river, illuminating a scene of utter distress. 2 women were thrashing in the water near the raft, struggling to stay afloat. One of the first women was clutching a small figure, a 1-year-old boy, but within seconds, the child slipped from her grasp. The baby boy drifted towards the bow of the Coast Guard boat, then moved rapidly to its stern, at which point Guerrera instinctively yanked the vessel's throttles back to neutral. Now unable to actively maneuver his boat, Guerrera fixed his gaze on the small boy as the current pulled him further away. He said, "I can vividly remember the infant bobbing and face down in the water," he recalled. "To me, the baby looked lifeless." The coxswain's crew shouted to the baby to get out of the water, or to get the baby out of the water even. And nearly at the same moment, Jack Flores shouted, "I'm going in." In one seamless, well-practiced movement, Flores, stripped of his law enforcement gear, leaped off the boat, swam dog style after the baby boy, and he just couldn't let the kid drown in front of him, he said. Within seconds, he grabbed the infant, fought the current back to the boat, and held the limp child to his teammate, Corey Connolly. Shining his flashlight down on the baby, Connolly noted the motionless limbs, chestnut rising, and pallid grey face. Connolly, who had been in the Coast Guard for a year and a half, immediately dropped his knees and began CPR. At that point, his training kicked in, he said. You go through first aid training not to have use on it anymore, but I'm glad it helped at that moment. While Connolly administered chest compressions, Coxswain Jarrett Guerrero turned his attention to the two women still splashing nearby, clinging to the side of the vessel. He pulled the terrified, exhausted duo from the water and helped his teammate Flores clamber back into the boat. All eyes were on Connolly, still rhythmically pressing on the baby boy's chest. Head bowed as he worked, and after around 3 rounds of CPR, the infant stirred and began bringing up water. He was very relieved and happy to see all was okay, Connolly said. It would have been devastating if it had not gone as well as it did. There we go. That's a story.
Yeah, guys. I know this is a boat story, but these rescue swimmers that they do tours, they go back and forth between the boats and the aircraft. These are the folks, if you've seen the movie, it's got Ashton Kutcher in it, Kevin Costner. It's a Coast Guard boat. No. Somebody in the chat room is going to find it. It is a Coast Guard movie.
Dear.
The rescue swimmers do tours both in the air, and they're the ones that you see in the movies jump out of helicopters from 50 feet in the air. And this kind of story is such a regular thing. Carlos, I did see that on your social media. You posted a fundraiser for your local air ambulance.
Yeah.
These air crews, the rescue swimmers, the support personnel, I always think are such an I guess it's a thankless part of aviation. That The Guardian. Thank you, Dirk. It's called The Guardian, the movie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the newspaper.
No, go see it. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it's on streaming services. Go see that movie because it's actually a great movie and really accurate. And it's just, I mean, what a thankless job. And these folks, you don't know that you need them until the day that you do. And they'll go out hundreds of miles offshore to rescue someone and search for days and months, just as much as some of this inland search and rescue, like in the Rio Grande. You can rest assured that these boat patrols are augmented by aircraft providing information. But just a great story, and you know, I would love for you, Carlos, to somehow arrange some kind of interview with the air ambulance folks, because I think that they just do such a great job.
Yeah. I need to look into that.
I think there's a someone we know who might be able to help with you with that, actually, Carlos. So
yeah, I think there is someone I know as well who's at a certain airport where these guys are based.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be.
Leave that with Carlos. He may be able to do something about that.
I think it's they're in the definition of an intrepid aviator. I mean, the military gets all kinds of credit, but these air ambulance folks and this Coast Guard's rescue air crews, they're in the middle of the night in terrible weather, landing in the middle of a field surrounded by trees and power lines. It's just amazing what they're able to do.
I mean, I've often said that about paramedics in general. I mean, it's that courage, if you like, to step into the unknown. I mean, you don't know when you turn up to that house, for example. You don't know the incident that's led up to this thing. I mean, you are literally putting yourself in danger. It's not, as you say, it's not just military personnel. It's like anytime any emergency service is involved. I mean, it's just I do worry sometimes we don't show them as much respect as we should. Do you know what I mean, for the job that they do?
Yeah, and don't forget as well, Matt, the whole reason why I've set up the donation page for my birthday next week on Facebook is because the air ambulance here in the UK isn't funded by the government. It doesn't get monies, given to it by the government or any banks or anything. It is funded, by donations from people like myself and other people around the country. So,
well, we did.
I think the US Coast Guard I'm under is that government?
It's not just federally funded; it's a branch of the military here.
Okay, yeah. And was it a story? I think was it not last week, obviously, but a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think is it something like £12 million a year it costs to keep it in the air. It's not a cheap thing, and it's I don't know. I mean, have you had much experience with the air ambulance, Nev?
No, I'm pleased to say that it's never been required for me so far. But no, they're a fascinating bunch of folks and so dedicated. And I say my biggest surprise still is that the whole, nearly all the air ambulance outfits are funded by charitable donations. For me, it's an essential service.
I agree.
And therefore it should be government funded.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's just, as you say, it's just crazy, really, that isn't the case, is it? It's it's. I'm just trying to. I've got a picture that Mr. Warner has sent us, which I'm just trying to get up on screen here now. Now, regular listeners to the show may remember that Jonathan was a witness to a pretty horrific incident that took place at Shoreham a few years back now, and actually the picture he's just sent me here is of the Coast Guard rescue literally arriving. Now, I'm sure everybody listening to this show knows what carnage was going on around, the site there, as you say, and as Armando was saying, putting these things down, avoiding power lines and goodness knows what else to try and get you in and out, those who have been injured in and out as quickly as possible. It's isn't it? It's just astounding, isn't it? As I say, they don't get the respect that they deserve sometimes, and that's pretty shocking, isn't it? There we go.
So Armando, you've got some F-35 news.
Not just F-35s. I know we've got a lot to get through in the next few minutes, so I'll just kind of briefly touch on this one. Not just the F-35, the Air Force did announce that initially the F-35 fighter fleet was being grounded. This was due to a faulty component inside the ejection seat that could prevent the pilot from being able to safely egress the aircraft during an emergency. That was according to Breaking Defense. This comes from a couple different sources. Air Combat Command spokeswoman did confirm that the temporary stand down of all ACC controlled F-35s. Now, this all began on July 19th, and they began what's called a TCTD, a time compliance technical directive, to inspect all of the cartridges inside the ejection seats within the next 90 days. Out of an abundance of caution, ACC stood down all of the units on July 29th to expedite the inspection process. Later that afternoon, Air Education and Training Command, AETC, announced that it had also paused F-35 operations on June 29th to allow their logistics teams to analyze the issue and further inspect the seats. Now, the issue here is actually these cartridge actuated devices, which are explosive cartridges inside the ejection seats that help propel the seat out of the aircraft during an emergency, as we know. According to the Air Force, certain production lots of these CADs used in Martin Baker ejection seats had been identified by the company as being defective and needing replacement. Now, this also ended up grounding almost 300 training aircraft. So I think some of the T-6s, some of the T-38s were affected by this. The Navy separately acknowledged that it had grounded part of its fleet. I think some F-18s were affected by these Martin Baker seats. And over there in the UK, the Red Arrows and some Typhoons were grounded.
Oh, is that what the grounding was all of? I'd heard the story about the Red Arrows having to sort of ground their fleet sort of immediately. I think they're back in the air now, aren't they?
They did. They canceled at the time. They canceled the last show of Farnborough, the last scheduled show. I think later that evening they were back in the air and the Hawks were back up. But this is effective. There was another story about Israel having to ground their F-35 fleet. So, and a place like Israel doesn't doesn't really have the luxury of grounding their most technologically advanced fighter aircraft for very long. So at least it was self-identified by Martin Baker, but this, I believe, at the end of the day, affected over 500 combat and training aircraft worldwide due to this defective part.
Perhaps Martin Baker had run out of ties, so that
they wanted to make sure nobody punched out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that kind of wraps up the military. And Carlos, I think we're going to move on to the next part of the show.
Yep, next part of the show, which is our competition, or actually our caption this competition, just for fun. It's there's no prizes for this, but you do get the prize of us laughing at your comments. And on Wednesday, actually Tuesday, I put it on this week. I gave you all the chance to get a day in early. So on Tuesday this week, I posted a picture on our social media platform, Facebook, on our P2K page, for you to all give your best and most wittiest comments on. And this week again, it's been quite an involved picture, I will say. And Nev, for the benefit of our audio listeners, what did this week's picture show?
I think the best way of describing it is a tail strike, don't you? And we were not short of people with creative thoughts and ideas. Some of them were a little bit rude, but we've had to keep some of them in because they were nearly all rude. So there we go. So off you go, Carlos. Let's start.
Yes, so this week's first was from James, who says, "Skid marks in my JB Coopers."
Another James says, "I told you to go slow. It was my first time."
Oh no.
Armando.
Michael says, "If your jet exhibits this type of behavior, get it to the vet as soon as possible. It could be a sign of worms or other issues."
Stuart Thomas says, "We're going to need a bigger honey truck, guys."
Oh, I like that. Simon says, "Maybe you shouldn't have given that guy in the back row that spare curry portion."
Oh, no.
Chris says, "I thought this lesson was on a tail dragger."
Let's see what we do there.
Jason says, "See what happens when you pick a thread on some stitching, Karen."
James Graves Brown comes up with the classic, of course. "It's just a scratch, it'll buff right out."
And Dirk comes in with breaking news. Aviation World baffled as first photo of Boeing's passenger to skydiving plane conversion is leaked.
I mean, that would work really rather well. As
Stephen says, "Someone's in a whole lot of trouble."
Oh dear.
David says, "Heck of a tailwind."
Dear Stuart Asler says, "That's one heck of a skid mark." Oh dear.
Very true.
Indeed.
Mark says, "It was at this point that Bob was forced to admit that the Madras was a bad idea."
I'm noticing a theme on the curries here, right?
What's this next one?
Oh no.
Yes, Stephen says, "When the APU takes a poo."
Right. I mean, it rhymes. No? Okay.
Speaking of rhymes, John says, "There's a rat in the galley. What am I going to do? There's a rat in the galley."
Harking back to a reggae song.
Oh, I see. Bill says, "Boeing illustrates its current state of quality assurance."
What was that last word?
Quality assurance.
And John says, "Due to the lack of baggage handlers, we'll be doing a go around to drop the luggage off first."
Oh, right. Well, that's fair. I mean, that's very efficient. Yeah.
Unlucky last.
Bill says, "Boeing's first attempt at a rear loading straight-in configuration for the 747 was less than successful."
Less than successful indeed. Yes, absolutely. Yes, not good at all. Oh dear.
I don't know if you're going to post them on there, but there's a couple good ones in the chat room. Miles says, "Day after Taco Tuesday."
I knew Neil would have to come out with a Captain Al classic.
Right.
Captain Al's curry had an explosive result.
Oh dear.
We have got a few in there. Anyone want to carry on with Richard Adams one there, Nev?
Yes, Richard says Boeing's latest groundbreaking design didn't break ground.
I see what you did there. Yeah.
Jonathan says when she says she's ready to settle down.
Anyway,
I'm far too naive to understand any of that.
Well, it's safe to say that definitely sparked some conversation.
Yeah, that's one word for it. Yes, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I do like one of Micah's here is like, okay, I learned my lesson. They really ripped me a new one.
I think that's my favourite, actually. I like that one.
Past the Pepto-Bismol.
Anyways.
Oh dear.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the comments. Really appreciate it this week. Don't forget to check out our social media, Facebook. Give us a like and follow if you don't already on Facebook. And check out on Wednesdays when we'll put another picture up for you all to leave your witty comments on. So what's next on the show? Now, it's our competition to win an aircraft tag. One is from a commercial jetliner and the other one is from a military jetliner. Well, we set you a question each. One question was from Nev and the other question was from Armando. Now, Matt's got some pictures of the actual tags. You get the chance to win if your name is drawn out of the hat. We'll be doing this on next week's show, and next week's show will be my birthday show. So it's the birthday show for me next week. So we'll be drawing those names out of a hat next week. So Nev, what was the question that you posed for our listeners as to this particular tag?
Yes, well, this particular British Airways 747, the registration of it was very appropriate for the civilian world.
Yeah, so we're looking for the registration. It's got to be the exact registration, and you needed to listen to exactly what Nev said. Just one more time, Nev. What was that question again?
The question is on this British Airways Boeing 747 400. Sorry, is it a 400?
Yes,
it was a 400. Yes. What is the registration of this, and why is it particularly appropriate for a civilian airliner?
Answers in via email for that as well, please, guys and girls. Don't let it slip in the chat room. Mate, you've got a picture of the rear of that tag as well. It's got quite an interesting back design on that tag as well, actually, that we're giving away there. There's also a military tag to give away on the show, and Armando, you've got the question for that chance to win that tag.
Yeah, that's right. The answers that have come in, one person has all three portions correct. So the question is, in World War II, the same aircraft designation, i.e. a P-51, was assigned to two totally different platforms. One was built by Martin, the other one by Douglas. Which Douglas aircraft am I asking for? What group flew it, and from which RAF station in the UK?
There we go. So that'll be your chance to win the VC10 tag. Now, this VC10 has got quite the history. This was the VC10 that was doing the ground runs at Bruntingthorpe at the Cold War Jets Day before it was sadly scrapped. This is a limited cut of 200 of these they took from the aircraft. We've managed to grab lucky number 7, so tag number 7 out of 200. And this is cut from the fuselage of Zulu Delta at 241, which was part of the Royal Air Force refueling team, VC10. So your chance to win that. One last time, Armando, just in case anyone missed it, what is that question again?
In World War II, the same aircraft designation was assigned to two different aircraft, such as a P-51. It was not a P-51. One was Martin, one was Douglas. Which Douglas aircraft am I asking for? What was its mission? And what RAF station did it fly from?
So to be in with a chance of winning, all we want you to do is send your answers in via email, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. There'll be more info on that at the end of the show. So good luck. We'll be drawing that next week on the show out of the hats. There'll be hats everywhere on the show next week. It'll be just like a Sunday morning show for Matt on Park Radio when he's pulling names out of the hat.
Moving on.
So, moving on to the next part of the show. And Armando, you've got something special to show us here.
Well, yes and no. We can also do this after the show. It's just kind of a little bit of a, wrap up from the simulator.
We missed the show last week. We can show it.
Okay, Nev, are we good on time?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to, have you come off the director's chair. We actually, if you guys haven't noticed, we don't have a producer today, which is why we're gonna just throw it all to the wind. And anyway, so simulator training was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Man, what a fire hose of information. I had an update that we sent out on the last show, but the way this goes is for initial type rating, and I've heard you guys talk about type ratings. Here in the US is a little bit different, right? So type ratings are only required for large aircraft and turbine aircraft. So anything over 12,500 pounds, or a turbojet or something unique, it requires a type rating. I think that's different in EASA. You need to have a type rating or at least training in each aircraft or airframe. So here, type rating means large aircraft, turbojet aircraft. The way this goes, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks long. There is a week of ground school in which it is just a fire hose of information. They tell you all about the systems. They tell you about the operations, the avionics, flight management systems. Oh my gosh, there's just so much to learn. And it's up to you to study in the evenings in order to be ready for the next day. But they don't actually cover the material again until the test at the end of ground school. So it is entirely incumbent upon you to retain the information. After that, they prepare you for the ground simulators. Fixed base simulator doesn't move, but it's got all the buttonology and all the switches. They're all touchscreens nowadays. So from one simulator, Carlos, you would love to have one of these things. I would love to have one of these things in my house. I sent you guys some pictures, right? I mean, it is all touchscreen, and you basically go through all of your flows, your procedures, your normal procedures, abnormal procedures, emergency procedures, before you hit the actual full motion simulator. Then you go into the full motion sim. That's usually a week long or a little bit more, anywhere from 5 to 7 or even 10 simulator sessions. It's just and they start with normal operations, things that you already know, normal instrument procedures and just flying the airplane, doing steep turns and stalls, things like that. Yep, you do stalls in a jet. Then they start introducing abnormal situations, and then you usually have a hot day. So something like flying a heavy out of Colorado, where it's a high density altitude, to give you a little bit of performance practice, like you were talking about earlier, Carlos. Then they start piling on the emergencies. So abnormals turn into emergencies. You have an entire day that's dedicated to icing operations and accumulation of ice and some of the performance considerations that you have to do through icing. And then after all that, you have to do check ride prep. And then you got a check ride. And depending on your operation, whether you're a private owner, perhaps a charter operator, or even a large operator, airline style, your check ride may be internal to your company with one of your own check airmen. It could be a check airman provided by the training facility, or if you're lucky, you could have an FAA check airman. It was just a fire hose of information. 3 weeks goes by so fast. I thought I was going to have time to do podcast contributions and videos and all these things. It was 8 to 5 all day long. Come home for an hour of a mental break, study for 2 to 3 hours, and then just fall asleep on the couch in the hotel room by 9 o'clock at night to wake up and yeah. Pip's in the chat room. He's gone through this a couple times. The Hawker specifically is a very mechanical airplane. Like he's saying, the thrust reversers, all of the systems are very mechanical, and you have to know how they all operate. My brother at the same time was actually getting trained up on the Global Express. He's on the and his is a very computerized, very automated airplane. My brother's been flying for almost 40 years, and he had to transition into that kind of thinking where the airplane does almost everything for you. Yeah, it was just crazy. Unfortunately, I wish I could have taken more videos, but it's all proprietary information for the way they train. Airplanes are not, but the way they train is proprietary, so they don't want that kind of recording getting out there. But I am glad to be back, and yeah, flying the real airplane is easier.
I'm going to guess that you enjoyed the practical side of the training as opposed to the paperwork part.
I did. To me, the flying was easy. Maybe not easy, but easier. The amount of information that you have to retain for a 3-hour knowledge exam, the verbal, face-to-face knowledge exam. And in my case, I had to do it by myself, where my sim partner wasn't able to sit in there with me because we had two different, he was a Part 135 operator, charter. I was a private operator. So our check ride consisted of different things that we had to do, but it was 3 hours of getting scenario driven hard questions on airplane systems and operations. Yeah, the flying was pretty easy to me.
Well, you done it now. You done it now. Time for a beer, Armando. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Well done. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So anyways, maybe one day we'll be able to get in with one of these companies and talk about how this kind of simulator training goes. But it's real similar at the airlines if you're pursuing an airline path, or if you're using, going the charter path. Just be ready for it. Don't try to do this with distractions in your life. Have your home life squared away. Right, Pip?
Right, Armando?
Uncanny.
And on
absolutely uncanny.
And on that note, thank you for that, Armando. That's, I feel like you should possibly do a whole segment for our Patreon and PayPal donators just about the training. I think that'd be quite nice. But it's time to wrap up the show, episode 421 of the show. Going to say a big thanks to all our chat room family this evening for joining us. Thanks for everyone who's joined us this evening in the YouTube chat room, and thanks as well to all the audio downloaders of the show as well. Thank you for choosing to download the podcast as well. Don't forget as well, if you're downloading through iTunes or Spotify or Podbean, you can leave us a review in there. We very much appreciate that indeed. If you have a spare couple of minutes to leave us a review, that'd be great. And yeah, that is about it, guys and girls, for this week's show. Don't forget, next week we'll be announcing the winner of our plane tags, our two winners for the two tags. Those answers, again, will be, if you play back the show, will be available to listen to again on YouTube and through all the usual download audio platforms. So, well, that's it, guys. Thanks to all the hosts as well. Thanks to Nev, Armando, and big thanks to Matt as well for driving the P2K studios as well this evening. And yeah, any last words before we finish them tonight, guys?
I'm off to Stockholm on Monday for a few days, followed by Norwich on Thursday.
I know, very much looking forward to that.
So that'll be a good one.
Yes.
Look forward to that.
Absolutely. A little road trip. Very exciting.
Armando, any exciting flying going on for you this week?
Yeah, tonight. Actually, as soon as about an hour after we finish the show, I head off to Hilton Head Island for an overnight, then fly up to Maine tomorrow. And then next week, Meg and I are taking a week-long vacation to California. So we'll be in LA for the week, staying at a vineyard, and then hopefully meeting up with some airplane buddies. I always throw aviation in there, so I love that quite. She loves it. Yeah,
just as well, I think.
Yeah, so I'll be on the show next week from LA somewhere.
Wonderful. That's
excellent.
Great news. Really pleased to hear that.
Well, that's where we bring episode 421 to a close this week. Thanks again to everyone. Thanks to all the viewers and listeners. And we'll be back again next Friday. So from me, Carlos, here in the home studio, from Matt in the Master Suite studios, from Nev in his glorious studios, and from Armando in his glorious studio as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend and see you next Friday. Say goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.